Let's talk about one of the biggest puzzles in all of human history. How do you build a government that's powerful enough to actually run a country, but not so powerful that it crushes the freedom of its own people? It's a tricky balance, and it all comes down to one thing: power.
I mean, really think about it. What happens when one person, or maybe one tiny group, gets to make the laws, enforce the laws, and judge who broke the laws? Well, that's a recipe for some serious trouble.
Yep. When all that power is stacked in one place, it almost always gets ugly fast. It leads to tyranny. You get unfair rules designed to help the people in charge, people get punished without a fair process, and pretty soon, nobody feels safe anymore. So how do you stop that from ever happening?
Well, let's travel back a few hundred years, because one brilliant thinker decided to make it his life's mission to solve this exact problem. His name was Montesquieu, and his big idea would literally change the world.
So who was this guy? His full name was Charles-Louis de Secondat, Baron de Montesquieu, but we'll just stick with Montesquieu. He wasn't just some philosopher sitting in an armchair. He was a lawyer, and he traveled all over Europe, studying different governments up close. He saw what worked and what really didn't. He was especially fascinated by England, where the king didn't have absolute power. And that got him thinking, there has to be a system to protect everyone from tyranny.
And get this, he didn't just jot this idea down over a weekend. He spent nearly 20 years of his life researching, studying history, and examining laws from all over the world to write his incredible book, The Spirit of the Laws. 20 years! That is some serious dedication.
For Montesquieu, freedom, or what he called political liberty, wasn't just about doing whatever you want. No, for him, it was a feeling. It was the peace of mind that comes from knowing you're safe. And you can only feel that way when the government itself has to follow clear rules, and when no one, not even the person in charge, is above the law.
So how do you get that safety? Well, he came up with a truly revolutionary solution. The key, he said, is to not put all of the government's power in one basket. You have to split it up. You have to divide it into 3 separate and balanced parts.
Okay, part 1 is the legislative branch. The easiest way to think about this is like the people who write the rules for a video game. These are the representatives that citizens elect, and their whole job is to debate and create the laws that everyone in the country will live by.
Next up, part 2, the executive branch. So if the legislature writes the game's rulebook, the executive is the one who actually runs the game. This is your president or prime minister. Their job is to enforce the laws, lead the military, and manage the day-to-day business of the country.
And finally, you've got the judicial branch. To finish our analogy, this is the referee. This branch is made up of courts and judges, and their job is to interpret the laws when people disagree. They decide what a rule actually means in a specific situation and if someone has broken it. And this is key. Montesquieu said they have to be completely independent to make sure their calls are fair.
All right, so you've got 3 branches, but just separating them isn't enough. The real genius, the secret sauce in Montesquieu's idea, is how he designed them to watch over and control each other so no one branch could ever get too powerful and take over.
Montesquieu summed it up with this perfect little phrase: power should be a check to power. It sounds simple, but that one idea is the engine that makes the whole system work.
We call this system checks and balances. A great way to picture it is like 3 big interlocking gears. Any one gear can turn, but it's limited by the other 2. It can't just spin out of control on its own. That's the idea. It forces all the branches to work together and stay in balance.
So let's make this real. How does this actually work? Well, each branch has special powers to limit or check the others. For example, say the legislative branch passes a new law. The executive can check that power by vetoing the law, basically saying, nope. But then, the legislative branch can check the executive by refusing to give them the money they need for their projects. And watching over them all is the judicial branch, which has the ultimate check. It can look at a law or an action and declare it unconstitutional, which makes it totally void. It's a constant game of push and pull that keeps everyone in line.
And you have to understand, this wasn't just some dusty old theory that stayed in a book. Montesquieu's idea of separating powers was a game changer. It became a practical blueprint for how to build a free country.
See, Montesquieu basically said there are 2 ways to rule. You can have governments based on law, like republics and monarchies, where leaders have to follow established rules. Or you can have despotisms, where one person makes up the rules as they go along, and everyone is controlled by fear. His whole system was designed to build governments based on law, not on fear.
And his idea took off. After his book was published in 1748, it spread like wildfire. Just a few decades later, it became the main blueprint for the people writing the United States Constitution. And today, that core idea, the separation of powers, is a fundamental part of democracies all across the globe.
So the biggest thing to take away from all this is that these ideas from almost 300 years ago are not just history. They are alive and working all around you, right now. Every time you hear about Congress debating a new law, or a president making a big decision, or a court striking something down, you're watching Montesquieu's system in action. So next time you see that, think about those three interlocking gears, checking and balancing each other, all to protect that simple but powerful feeling he called political liberty.